I'm writing this because I don't know where else to turn, and I need to get this story out of my head before it eats me alive. It all started with something that sounded so promising, so full of hope. My parents called it the Viridian Family Future Fund. The idea was simple. Each of us, my older sister Amelia and I, would contribute a fixed percentage of our monthly income. They told us that by pooling our resources, we could make smarter, more significant investments than we ever could alone. They painted a beautiful picture of shared prosperity, of a future where we would all rise together, protected and supported by our collective financial strength. It felt so mature and responsible when they first proposed it. I was just starting my career in data analysis, and while my salary was decent, I didn't know the first thing about investing. Amelia was pursuing her dream of becoming a singer-songwriter, a path that was, by its very nature, financially unstable. My parents presented the fund as the perfect solution for both of us. For me, it was a guided entry into the world of finance. For Amelia, it was a safety net, a way to build a future even while she was chasing a dream that had yet to pay any bills. The logic seemed sound, and the idea of building something together was incredibly appealing. The rules were laid out very formally, which made it all seem so legitimate. We had a ledger, a shared document online where we could see the monthly contributions and the supposed growth of the fund. Every month, I would diligently transfer 15% of my paycheck, watching my contribution column grow. I felt a sense of pride seeing those numbers go up. My parents acted as the fund managers, citing their life experience as qualification enough to handle our money. They would talk about diversification, about long-term stocks and low-risk bonds. It all sounded so professional, and I trusted them completely. Why wouldn't I? They were my parents. Amelia's contributions were sporadic at best. Some months she'd put in a small amount from a gig, but most months her column in the ledger simply read, "waived." My parents explained this was part of the plan. Her artistic development was considered an investment in itself, they'd say. They assured me that once she made it big, her massive earnings would more than compensate for her lack of early contributions. It was a long-term strategy, they insisted. I was the stable earner, the workhorse building, the foundation, while she was the high-risk, high-reward venture that would eventually make us all rich. I accepted this, believing I was supporting my sister's dream. For years, this was our reality. I climbed the corporate ladder, my salary increased, and so did my monthly contributions. The fund, according to the ledger, was growing steadily. I lived frugally, putting off vacations and major purchases, always thinking about the bigger picture and our shared future. I saw the fund as my primary savings, my nest egg, my path to one day owning a home. When I would ask my parents for more specific details about the investments, they would give me vague answers about market complexities and tell me not to worry my pretty little head about it. They had it all under control, they promised. The first crack in the facade appeared about 5 years into the arrangement. I needed to access a small portion of my contributions for a necessary medical procedure that my insurance wouldn't fully cover. I wasn't asking for a handout, just an early withdrawal from my own money. I thought it would be a simple process. I approached my parents, explaining the situation calmly, expecting them to understand and facilitate the transfer. Instead of compassion or a simple, "okay," I was met with a strange and sudden wall of resistance that immediately set off alarm bells in my mind. Their reaction was completely disproportionate to my request. They became incredibly defensive, almost hostile. My father told me the fund was locked in to long-term investments and that pulling money out prematurely would incur massive penalties for everyone. My mother added that my request was selfish and that I needed to think about the family's collective goals instead of my own immediate needs. They made me feel like I was a traitor for even asking. The procedure wasn't cosmetic, it was medically necessary. Their refusal to even discuss it, their immediate anger, felt so wrong. It was the first time I felt that something wasn't quite right with the fund. I ended up having to take out a high-interest personal loan to cover the medical costs, a debt that I am still paying off to this day. The experience left a bitter taste in my mouth, and a seed of doubt was planted. I started paying closer attention to Amelia's life. She wasn't struggling like a typical starving artist. She lived in a trendy downtown apartment, wore designer clothes, and was always showcasing new, expensive, musical equipment on her social media. When I questioned how she could afford all of it, my parents said she was getting artistic grants and sponsorships, though she was never able to name a single one. The ledger, which had once been a source of pride, now became a source of anxiety. The numbers looked good, showing a consistent, almost suspiciously smooth upward trend with no dips or volatility. As a data analyst, I know that no real investment portfolio behaves that way. The market fluctuates. There are good months and bad months. Our fund, however, was a picture of perfect, uninterrupted growth. It was too perfect. It was a fabrication, a carefully constructed lie designed to keep me contributing without asking any difficult questions. The beautiful picture they had painted was starting to look like a forgery. My suspicion grew into a quiet obsession. I began to do my own research into the types of investments my parents claimed to be making. I read books, followed market trends, and even took a few online courses on personal finance. The more I learned, the more I realized that the story they were telling me was full of holes. The returns they were reporting were not just optimistic, they were practically impossible for the low-risk strategy they claimed to be following. The numbers in the ledger were not a reflection of market performance, they were simply made up. The breaking point came last year. I was promoted to a senior analyst position, which came with a substantial raise and a bonus. My parents, of course, suggested I contribute my entire bonus to the fund, calling it a booster shot for our collective future. I politely declined, telling them I wanted to manage my bonus myself. The reaction was nothing short of explosive. They accused me of betraying the family, of being greedy, of abandoning Amelia and her dream. Their desperation to get my bonus money was terrifyingly revealing. It was clear they needed it for something specific and urgent. That night I couldn't sleep. I had to know the truth. My parents kept all their important documents in a locked filing cabinet in my father's home office. I know it was a violation of their privacy, but I felt I had no other choice. My entire financial future was at stake. Waiting until they were asleep, I went into the office and, with a heavy heart and shaking hands, picked the lock, a skill I had learned from a silly online video years ago and never thought I would use. The things you do when you are pushed to the absolute edge of desperation. Inside the cabinet, there was a folder labeled Viridian Fund, but it didn't contain stock certificates or investment statements. It was full of receipts. Receipts for studio recording time, receipts for custom-made stage outfits, receipts for a high-end public relations firm specializing in musicians. There were also rental agreements for Amelia's expensive apartment and payment confirmations for all of her brand new equipment. It was all there. A meticulous record of every dollar they had spent, every dollar of my money they had spent. There was no investment, there was no fund, there was only Amelia. Every single cent I had diligently contributed for nearly a decade had been funneled directly into funding her lifestyle and her fruitless music career. My money paid for her rent, her clothes, her food, her professional photo shoots, and her vanity projects. The fund was nothing more than a private bank account for my sister, bankrolled almost entirely by me. The shared online ledger was a complete work of fiction, a fantasy spreadsheet my dad updated once a month to keep the illusion alive. The feeling of seeing that folder, that proof of betrayal, is something I can't even describe. It was a cold, hollowing emptiness. I found the bank statements for the account too. The official name on the account was simply my mother's and father's. I saw my monthly transfers coming in, and then a flurry of debits going out, all for things related to Amelia. There were payments to a vocal coach, a choreographer, and even for the production of a music video that got less than 1,000 views on YouTube. They had been systematically draining my income for years to prop up her dream, a dream that showed absolutely no signs of ever becoming a reality. It was a black hole for my money. I felt physically ill. I sat on the floor of my father's office for what felt like hours, just staring at the evidence of their grand deception. Every sacrifice I had made, every extra shift I had worked, every vacation I had skipped, it all flashed before my eyes. I had done it all for a future that was never mine to begin with. I was just the engine, the unwitting financier of my sister's whims. They hadn't just taken my money, they had stolen my time, my sacrifices, and my trust. The betrayal was so deep, so calculated, it felt like I was suffocating. The most painful part was realizing the depth of the premeditation. This wasn't a mistake or a series of bad decisions. This was a carefully executed plan from the very beginning. They had identified me, the responsible and stable child, as the source of funding, and Amelia, the special and talented one, as the worthy recipient. They built an entire mythology around this family fund to manipulate me into willingly handing over my hard-earned money month after month, year after year, without question. It was a long con, and I was the mark. I put all the documents back in the folder, locked the cabinet, and went back to my room. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning I confronted them. I didn't scream or cry. I was strangely calm, a chillingly quiet version of myself I had never met before. I simply sat them down at the kitchen table, with Amelia present, and laid out everything I had found. I asked them to explain the receipts, the bank statements, and the complete absence of any actual investment portfolio. I wanted to hear them say it. At first, they tried to deny it, to gaslight me. My father blustered about creative accounting and unconventional investment strategies. He actually tried to tell me that funding a potential celebrity was a high-risk, high-reward investment, just like a tech startup. My mother started to cry, not out of remorse, but because she had been caught. She accused me of snooping, of violating their trust, completely missing the monumental irony. She said I was trying to sabotage my sister's career just as she was, on the brink of a breakthrough. Amelia was the worst. She sat there with a smug, entitled look on her face, as if I were the one who had done something wrong. She said I was always jealous of her talent and that I should be proud to support her art. She told me that once she became a famous star, she would pay me back tenfold, so I should stop being so dramatic and materialistic. There was not an ounce of gratitude or shame in her. She truly believed that she was entitled to my money, that my purpose was to fund her life. This was her normal. That was the moment I understood. This was not just about money. It was about my perceived role in the family. In their eyes, I was the worker bee, and Amelia was the queen. My value was purely utilitarian. I was there to provide resources. Her value was in her potential, her dream. They had never seen me as a person with my own dreams and aspirations. My future was just collateral for hers. The financial betrayal was just a symptom of a much deeper emotional one that had been there all along. My entire life, I was just a supporting character in the story of Amelia. I didn't argue with them. I didn't engage with their absurd justifications. I just stood up from the table and told them I was done. I explained that I would be moving out immediately and that I would be cutting off all contact. I told them that the Viridian Family Future Fund was officially dissolved, and I would be consulting a lawyer to see if I had any legal recourse to recover the money they had stolen from me over the past 10 years. The word stolen finally wiped the smug look off Amelia's face. The fallout was immediate and ugly. They started a smear campaign against me with our extended family, painting me as a cold, materialistic monster who had abandoned them and my struggling sister. They told everyone that I was bitter and jealous of her talent. Some relatives believed them, calling me to lecture me on the importance of family. Others, who had always seen the blatant favoritism, have quietly reached out to offer their support, but they are few and far between. The family is fractured, perhaps irreparably. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of the city. The financial toll of this has been devastating. I am in my early 30s with virtually no savings, a personal loan I am still paying off, and a deep, gnawing sense of financial insecurity. The decade I should have spent building my own future was spent building a fantasy for my sister. The amount of money they took from me, when I calculate it, is staggering. It's enough for a down payment on a house, a full master's degree, or a comfortable retirement fund. It's all gone. I did speak to a lawyer. He was sympathetic but realistic. Since I willingly transferred the money each month, and because the arrangement was informal and between family members, a legal battle would be incredibly difficult, expensive, and not guaranteed to succeed. He said it would likely come down to my word against theirs, and that these cases often tear families apart for no financial gain. The best he could do was send a formal letter demanding repayment, which my parents have, predictably, ignored completely. So here I am, starting over from scratch. The emotional toll is, in many ways, worse than the financial one. There is a profound sense of loneliness that comes from realizing the people who were supposed to love and protect you unconditionally were the very ones who orchestrated your downfall. The trust I had in them, in the very concept of family, has been shattered into a million pieces. I find myself second-guessing everyone's motives now, which is a lonely way to live. I sometimes scroll through Amelia's social media, a form of self-torture, I suppose. It's still the same. Pictures in a new outfit, a post about her artistic journey, a short clip of a new song that sounds exactly like her last one. I see my money in every photo, in every prop, in every carefully curated post. She's living a life that I paid for, a life built on a foundation of lies and my own naive trust. It's a bitter pill to swallow, knowing I funded my own erasure from the family narrative. The ledger they created is still accessible online. They forgot to revoke my viewing privileges. I look at it sometimes. It hasn't been updated since the day I confronted them. It's just frozen in time, a digital monument to their deception. My column shows the thousands upon thousands of dollars I contributed. Amelia's column is almost entirely empty. Seeing it laid out so starkly in black and white is both infuriating and, in a strange way, validating. It's proof that I'm not crazy, that the injustice was real. What hurts the most is the loss of my past. I look back on all the family holidays, the birthdays, the shared moments, and I now see them through a different lens. I wonder how many of their smiles were genuine, how many of their words of encouragement were just manipulations to keep me compliant and contributing. Were they laughing at me behind my back the whole time? The betrayal has tainted every single memory I have of them, and that is a theft from which I can never recover. My parents have tried to contact me a few times. The messages are always the same, a mix of guilt-tripping and veiled threats. They tell me Amelia is struggling without my support, that her big break is just around the corner, and that I will regret my decision when she is a famous star. They never apologize. They never acknowledge the money. They never admit to any wrongdoing. In their minds, they are the victims. They genuinely cannot comprehend that what they did was fundamentally wrong. I am in therapy now, trying to unpack all of this. My therapist says I need to grieve the loss of the family I thought I had before I can start to build a new life. It's hard work. Some days I am filled with a burning rage. Other days I am just deeply, profoundly sad. I mourn for the young woman who trusted her parents so implicitly, who believed so deeply in the idea of family unity. I don't know if I will ever get that part of myself back. The cynicism feels like a scar that will never fade. The irony is that my data analysis skills, the very career that they exploited, are what helped me uncover the truth. I saw the patterns in the fake ledger that they were too arrogant to think I would ever notice. I analyzed the bank statements with a cold, professional detachment. In a way, the career they used as a cash cow for my sister is the one thing that gave me the tools to break free. It's a small, bitter piece of poetry in this whole ugly mess. I'm holding on to that as a small victory. I have no idea what will happen to Amelia. Without my constant cash infusions, I don't know how she and my parents will sustain her lifestyle. Part of me feels a grim satisfaction at the thought of them finally having to face financial reality. Another, smaller part of me, the part that still remembers her as my little sister, feels a pang of pity. But I have to remind myself that my pity, my compassion, is what they used against me. I cannot afford to feel it for them anymore. My goal now is to focus on myself. I've created my own, real investment portfolio. I track my earnings. I'm aggressively paying down the loan I took out, and I'm slowly rebuilding the savings that were stolen from me. It's a much slower process on my own, but it's mine. Every dollar is accounted for, and every financial decision is made with my own well-being in mind. It feels empowering, but it's a cold comfort for the decade I lost. The road ahead is long. I wonder if they will ever understand the scale of what they did. It wasn't just about the money. They stole my 20s. They stole my sense of security. They stole my ability to trust. They fundamentally altered the course of my life based on a lie. They chose to sacrifice one child's future for the other's fantasy. How? Does a family justify that? How do they look at themselves in the mirror? These are questions I will probably never have answers to. The hardest part is accepting that I will likely never get the money back. More importantly, I will never get an apology or an admission of guilt. To them, the plan made perfect sense. I was the practical one. She was the artistic one. It was my job to pay for her dream. Their internal logic is so warped by favoritism that they are incapable of seeing the profound injustice of their actions. I have to find a way to make peace with that, to move on without closure. So, this is my story. I'm sharing it here, anonymously, because I want it to serve as a warning to others. When it comes to family and money, be careful. Don't let love and loyalty blind you to the red flags. Don't believe in promises that are too good to be true. And never, ever give someone else total control over your financial future, no matter who they are. Trust needs to be earned, not blindly given. And I have learned that lesson in the most brutal way imaginable. I'm trying to build a new family for myself now. A chosen family of friends who have shown me what real support looks like. It's not about money. It's about mutual respect, honesty, and being there for each other without a hidden agenda. It's a slow process, learning to trust people again, but it's the only way forward. I have to believe that my future is more than just the sum of what was taken from me. I have to believe that I can build something real from these ashes. The whole situation has made me reevaluate my life's priorities. Before, I was focused on saving for a distant, shared future. Now, I am focused on living in the present. I'm planning to take that vacation I always put off. I'm buying things that bring me joy, instead of feeling guilty about every small expenditure. I am trying to reclaim my life, one small, independent decision at a time. It is an act of defiance against the role they forced me into for so long. I still have nightmares about that night in my father's office. The feeling of the cold paper of the receipts in my hands. It's a trauma that lingers in the quiet moments. The sheer, calculated coldness of it all is what haunts me. They weren't just misguided, they were malicious. They actively and knowingly sacrificed my well-being for my sister's comfort. That is a truth that I will have to carry with me for the rest of my life. The trust is gone forever. My sister's music career, by the way, has completely stalled. Without the constant flow of my money to pay for PR and studio time, she has produced nothing new. Her social media has become repetitive and stale. It turns out that her talent was largely propped up by my finances. The breakthrough my mother insisted was just around the corner seems to have vanished now that the bank of me is closed for business. The silence from her end is deafening. My parents are now in financial trouble. I've heard through the grapevine that they are considering selling the family home to continue supporting Amelia. They are doubling down on their bad investment. It's sad to watch, but I know that getting involved would only drag me back into their toxic dynamic. I have to protect myself. My own financial and emotional recovery has to be my one and only priority. It's a harsh boundary to draw, but it's a necessary one for my survival. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had never found that folder. Would I still be there, dutifully transferring my money every month, believing in a shared future that was a complete lie? The thought is terrifying. As painful as the discovery was, it was also a liberation. The truth has cost me my family and my savings, but it has given me back my future, a future that is now entirely my own to shape and define. I am no longer a resource to be exploited. For anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation where something feels off, but you can't quite put your finger on it, please trust your gut. Investigate. Ask the hard questions. Demand transparency. Don't let the fear of upsetting the family dynamic stop you from protecting yourself. Your future is worth more than their comfort. I wish someone had told me that 10 years ago. It would have saved me a decade of my life and a fortune in stolen dreams. The anger is starting to fade now, slowly being replaced by a sense of resolute calm. I know what I have to do. I have to succeed, not for revenge, but for myself. I have to build a life so full and happy that their betrayal becomes just a footnote in my story, not the main chapter. That is my goal, to make my own success the final word in this saga. My own real tangible success, built by my own hands, for my own future. I've blocked their numbers, but sometimes they email me. The last email from my mother was just a single sentence. Amelia's rent is due, and she will be homeless because of you. It was a final, desperate attempt to manipulate me with guilt. I deleted it without replying. My old self would have been wrecked by that message. The new me, the one forged in the fire of their betrayal, recognized it for what it was. Another invoice for a life I am no longer willing to fund. My life is quieter now, but it's more honest. I have fewer people in my corner, but the ones who are there are real. The financial hole is deep, but I am slowly filling it. The journey is daunting, but for the first time in my adult life, I am the one in the driver's seat. They may have stolen my past, but I will not let them have my future. That I am keeping for myself. This whole experience has been a brutal, expensive education in self-reliance. And so, my focus remains on rebuilding. One paycheck, one investment, one day at a time. The trust in my family is gone, a ghost that will forever haunt the periphery of my life. But my trust in myself is slowly returning. I survived their deception, and I am finding my way out of the wreckage. It's a quiet, lonely victory, but it's a victory nonetheless. I am free from the burden of their expectations and their grand, elaborate lie. The Viridian Family Future Fund is now just a bad memory, a cautionary tale I tell myself whenever I feel a moment of weakness. It's a reminder that not all families have your best interests at heart, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. The price of admission to my family was my own future, and I am no longer willing to pay it. It's a lesson I paid for dearly, in both time and money. I don't know if I will ever fully heal from this. The scars are deep, and they have reshaped the person I am, but I am learning to live with them. I am learning that my worth is not defined by my utility to others. I am more than a source of income. I have my own dreams, my own goals, and now, finally, my own resources to pursue them. The path is uncertain, but it is mine. And for the first time, that feels like enough. It has to be. The silence from them now is a strange sort of peace. For years, my life was filled with their noise, their expectations, their praise when I complied, their anger when I questioned. The quiet is a balm. It's space for my own thoughts, my own plans. I'm starting to hear my own voice again, and it's telling me that I'm going to be okay. It will take time and a lot of hard work, but I will rebuild what they broke. I have to believe that. I'm sharing this in the hopes that my story might prevent someone else from making the same mistakes I did. Be vigilant, be skeptical, and always put your own financial oxygen mask on first before helping others. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially when they are the ones holding the match. The sense of betrayal from family cuts deeper than any other, a lesson I learned firsthand over 10 long, expensive years. The path forward involves a lot of therapy and a very strict budget, but it also involves a lot of freedom. The freedom to choose where my money goes. The freedom to plan a future that revolves around my own needs and desires. The freedom from their constant, subtle pressure. It's a strange and unfamiliar feeling, but I am slowly getting used to it. The weight of their expectations is finally gone, and I feel lighter than I have in years, despite the financial burden. My biggest fear now is that I'll become bitter and completely closed off. I'm working hard to prevent that. I want to remain open to the possibility of real, healthy relationships, both platonic and romantic. I cannot let what my parents and sister did poison my entire view of humanity. There is still good in the world. There is still loyalty and genuine love. I just had the misfortune of being born into a family that didn't know how to practice it. And Amelia? I hope one day she learns the value of a dollar earned through her own effort. I hope she learns that dreams require hard work, not just handouts. But honestly, I can't afford to spend any more of my energy hoping for her growth. My focus has to be on me. Her story is her own to write now, without my income as her ink. I have my own pages to fill and my own story to finish. The narrative of me as her silent benefactor is officially over. The family I once knew is gone. It was an illusion anyway, a story they told me to ensure my compliance. The reality was a transactional arrangement where I was the sole provider. Accepting that has been the key to moving forward. I'm not mourning the loss of a loving family. I'm mourning the loss of the idea of one. And that is a grief I can manage. The truth, as devastating as it was, has set me free. My final piece of advice to anyone reading this is to demand transparency. Regular audited statements, legal documentation. If it's a family investment, it should be able to withstand the same scrutiny as a real one. Don't let them hide behind the excuse of "this is just how our family does things." That phrase is often a cover for dysfunction and, in my case, outright theft. Your financial security is too important to be sacrificed for the sake of keeping the peace. So that's it. That's the story of how my family's investment fund turned out to be a 10-year-long scheme to fund my sister's influencer dreams. It's a painful, embarrassing story to tell, but I'm tired of carrying the shame of it alone. They should be the ones who are ashamed, not me. I was the one who was honest. I was the one who was betrayed. I was the victim, and I am slowly learning to stop blaming myself for trusting the people I was supposed to be able to trust the most. The road to financial recovery will be long. The calculator tells me that at my current rate of saving, it will take me another 15 years to build back the nest egg they stole from me. That's a bitter reality to face. But every dollar I save now feels different. It feels like a small victory, a tiny act of rebellion against the past. It's a declaration that my future is not for sale, not to anyone, and especially not to them. I am building my life on my own terms now. The sense of injustice still burns hot on some days. I think about the house I could have owned, the trips I could have taken, the security I could have felt. It's easy to get lost in the what-ifs, but I'm trying to focus on the what now. What now is a chance to live authentically, free from their manipulation. It's a chance to build a life that is truly my own, from the ground up. It's a daunting task, but it is also a tremendous gift. The betrayal has changed me in ways I am still discovering. I am more cautious, more cynical, but also more resilient. I have learned that I can survive the unimaginable. I have learned that my own strength is greater than I ever knew. They thought I was just their reliable source of income, quiet and compliant. They underestimated me. They didn't realize that the same diligence I applied to my job, I would one day apply to uncovering their lies. And that was their biggest mistake.